Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called Explore the Map of Dying. Learn a compassionate framework for navigating and changing your experience of supporting the dying. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And one of the most important transitions we ever make in our life is death. And so often it is veiled in fear and resistance. And there's a whole different way to approach the dying process that is illuminating and liberating and healing. And we're going to get to explore how to do that in a way that really leads to benefits for yourself, for those you might support in the dying process, and ultimately the larger world, since so much of the resistance to death becomes something that can undermine life itself. So we're going to get to explore with Dr. Jo Atkins. She has a doctorate. She's an end-of-life professional counselor. She's the founder of the Dying School and a SE practitioner. And so she's really has deep expertise in this area, and we're going to be excited to learn from her today. And if you want to go further, we have a brand new course launching with her. It's called The Map of Dying: Ritual, Presence, and the Art of Loving Someone Through Death. That will really provide a profound toolkit for you to navigate this transition with others. So, with that said, Jo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, let's jump in, and I would love to start with a little bit about your journey and why you have chosen to focus so much of your professional career on dying and doing that in a more conscious way.
I am like a lot of people who are in death work. I had an experience with somebody I love who died. My brother died when I was 24 and he was 37. I worked at a children's hospital at the time in an intensive care unit for kids, and I did things like footprints for kids who had died, babies who had died. Spent a lot of time with families. I had really beautiful mentors who helped me along the way. And I did the work and I loved the work. Um, I had the experience of my brother dying and I understood that I didn't know what I was doing. I
Mm.
did to a degree, but there's that thing that happens when you have a personal experience, especially around loss, and you're hollowed out from the inside. And I was, and our family was. And suddenly I had a whole new landscape and group of experiences to navigate and learn what grief was and learn what it felt like in my body and see people I love managing it and learned to talk about death and dying in ways that I hadn't done previously. That work continued on. I ended up writing a paper for the last class in my master's counseling program about starting a children's grief center in San Antonio. And I did that. A whole bunch of people helped. That place is 25 years old now and has helped thousands and thousands of grieving kids. That was a training ground and a sacred playground for me. And I'm so grateful to those kids and families who taught me there. My mother died soon after that. Her dying experience was part of my learning. And uh, being with my dad for 10 years, who went to the edge and came back and went to the edge and came back. And I didn't know that was a thing. And that's a thing. And then I ended up leading a hospice house here in San Antonio, which felt like a postgraduate thing too. And wow, I learned so much there. And lots of what I teach, I learned at Abode and just layers and layers of conversations and connections with people over these 30 years has impacted how I work now and helped with this creation of this map we're going to talk about today. Uh, um, Dying and death and talking about it is it's hard to make sense of and it's hard to grasp, and some of it's not meant to be grasped all the way, but sometimes we can have something on a piece of paper that helps us get a sense of it in a different way. And I expect that it's happened with other people, that this map will help give people something to push off of so they can see maybe where people they love who have been in the dying process were along the way. And then as they are with other people, they'll be able to help and connect maybe in a new way, make meaning in a new way.
Mm. Well, you've definitely had deep experiences in a lot of different directions, and I want to go back to a comment you made about being hollowed out
Yeah.
by grief, and it really comes down to like there is a way that the dying process puts you in a kind of an initiation. It's very difficult to prepare for psychologically or spiritually, and today we're going to provide some orienting to help that. But maybe first share just a little bit about how just this simple like releasing into like the sense of like this is difficult, that it's like it's not something you can just kind of manage away or like fit in little boxes, that is kind of an important part of the framework, it sounds like.
It is an important part of the framework. These beautiful mentors I've had, of many of them have talked about the things that you want to keep secret, or things you probably shouldn't keep secret. You should tell somebody. And there's a pain often around grief, and we think we should be strong. And in the U.S. we have our 3 days of bereavement leave, and then you're supposed to come back to work and be ready to go. And that's not how this works. Grief is an experience that lives in us, that we revisit, and it revisits us over a lifetime. I have had experiences in dreams with Jim. It's Jim, my brother. This is we're 30 plus years now, and the experience is very different. It's not painful in the way that it was, but boy, when it happened, it was. And you somebody can tell you about it, but until you're in it and your nervous system is experiencing and your heart is experiencing it, it's hard to fathom. And when we get in community and have conversations, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I felt that way," or "Oh yeah, that happened to me," or "Oh my gosh, yeah, I had a dream like that," that kind of connection and community allows for a collective nervous system, a wider opening, so that we can help each other hold our pain and hold our grief. And
Mhm.
that seems like a good thing.
Mm. So let's like start off with before we enter the map of dying, like this, the process of learning that somebody you love is going to be entering into this journey. What do you find is the most helpful stance to start with before you even understand the different stages of the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I invite people to come back to themselves, because often when we get news like that somebody we love is dying, or that we've got an illness and things are wonky, or it's beyond wonky, we're at not treatable, not curable, there's a settling in that has to happen. And some people are it, for some people, being able to tuck in and settle into that experience for themselves is really the first place they need to go. I met a woman in Helsinki just in January. I went for a hospice visit, and she was there to see if this is the place she wanted to die. And we ended up sitting together in this little room. And I was surprised there weren't family with her. And I asked, where were her people? And she said, I needed to do this by myself. I needed to figure out this one piece by myself, and then I'll bring them in. There are other people that need all their people and they do all of it together. So when people ask me for advice about the best way to do it, I don't know. I don't know what the best way to do it. I know that we have ways that we feel settled and secure and peaceful. And my invitation to people is to find those people, things, places that help them get settled, come back to their body, come back to themselves, and then orient to what's the one next thing they need to do on the path that's ahead of them.
Mm. So let's now jump into the actual map. So now that we're sort of entering into the territory, I think it's useful to kind of have the big picture of the different stages, and then how we can start to navigate those with a little more consciousness and compassion.
Yeah, so I didn't make this with stages. It's excuse me. There's a trajectory of experiences that happen when somebody's dying. So you see the red over here. It's in red. It happens to both. The experiences happen to the person who's dying and to the people who are coming along to help. And it is that thing we just talked about. There's news that happens, and for the sake of this conversation, It's the news that whatever the illness is no longer treatable and no longer curable. The medical system doesn't have the capacity to help your body live, and this body's going to die. This person is going to die. So there's a an experience then that happens that is dying. Many people are dying. Well, we're all dying, but some people are dying before they get to the map and they haven't given it that language, which is fine. There's a shift that happens for people when they're able to hold that identity of somebody who's stepping into that experience. And my my experience with people is that when they're able to hold that, um, unwieldy as it is, gently pushing against it, whatever it is, when they're able to begin to hold that and play with it, there's a different way of inhabiting the whole experience that's less difficult. And I have there's no judgment on how anybody decides to go. It's I think one of the reasons I love talking about and thinking about this so much because I get to meet so many people and hear about their experiences of living and what it means to them and how they've inhabited the world, and then see how they take all that to inhabit this experience of dying. So this part over here that's time to stop. There's decisions to be made. Do we go to hospice? Who's going to take care of the person? How's that going to happen? Where's it going to happen? All those are important conversations that will happen along the way for somebody who's in the midst of this. And then this all this other part, there's give you the overview. You see yellow and blue there, and that's on purpose. The uh, blue part is for the people who are at the bedside, the people who are caring for the person who's dying. And in the class, we'll talk about how we'll go into the layers of this. This is just the high level piece, but there's conversations about medicines to be had, and when curative medicines switch to comfort medicines, we'll talk about body care, what it means to care for somebody who is up moving around versus somebody who needs to be in the bed, and how do you manage that, and who comes to help if you can't do it by yourself. We're going to have this language I use, conversations about unwinding and tucking in. When someone is in their dying process, they have a lot of internal shifting and sorting they need to do. And they begin to step away from the rest of the world because the rest of the world is a lot, and they need to go inside and figure some things out. They'll come out for a little while and then go back in. And as they get further and further along in their dying process, that tucking in is longer and longer. We will talk about this idea of surges and rallies. So I alluded earlier that my father went to the edge and came back and went to the edge and came back. And after I began to recognize that as an experience that some people have, I began to see that in other people, other clients, and these surges of energy, and then living life for a while or resting for a long time, and then more surges of energy. We'll talk about rallies. We'll talk about the language of dying, which is one of my very favorite things to talk about, which is about um, the actual language people use as their body and spirit are beginning to separate. I get uh, excited. Excited isn't the right word. Maybe it is the right word. When somebody says to me, "Oh, my person's really confused today," I want to know what they're talking about. That language, when people talk about being confused, is often very similar that across the world to other people who are in that place of separating, where their body and spirit are trying to let go of each other, and the person's trying to die. The metaphors, people use a lot of metaphors. The metaphors change, and then the movement changes. Um, um,
So you say
We'll talk.
confusion is very common in that phase. So it's literally as there's a decoupling of spirit and body that people just don't know really how to even describe what's going on or
I
understand.
Yeah, we have people start um my father started talking about a basketball player that was at the end of his bed. And we couldn't see a basketball player at the end of his bed. And later he talked about a door, but the door was locked. And then later he talked about the door, but the door was open and that basketball player was there. I don't know who the basketball player was, but that language of there's somebody in the room that I don't know, but I'm not scared of them, but they're here. They're here. And these doors are locked, really, really common. And then at some point the doors open. This doesn't happen for everybody, but that's a really uh, common piece of language that I hear. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of confusing. Dad's talking about a basketball player being in there. And that's the word I would use if I didn't know there might be something more to it. So confusion is a great word to use. And my uh, conjecture is there is depth and nuance to confusion, and maybe there are things there to understand. And and in that understanding, we can be more settled. So if we're worried our person is confused and kind of bunched up around that, and then we hear language and recognize, oh, it's that this is part of what happens, we can settle down. And when we have settled energy, our person can also experience settled energy. And there's a lot of good cross pollination that can happen there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The settled energy is important, sort of like, so if you know these things are coming, you can kind of help anchor that for the person who's dying, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. So we will, in the classwork, there's a conversation here at the top of the map that's about relating and personalities, about how we relate to our family members. We may love them and may not like them, and we may have some family members we don't like, and what's the responsibility there. We'll talk some about ritual and ceremony and how sacred space in these experiences can be another way to help settle
Mhm.
ourselves and settle the person who's dying.
Let's go.
And
Let's go into that a little bit now,
yeah,
since that's really one of the things that's really at the heart of the Shift Network is the really honoring of the sacred and the creating of sacred processes for growth and evolution. So, obviously people have very different backgrounds and belief systems, and so what have you found some of the ritualized sacred actions that can be kind of more universal that help to really heal things that are in space that orient people to the deeper possibilities?
I think part of that is the container, um, the container that's held around the person who's dying, and what that looks like and feels like, and who is helping to keep that calm and peaceful. When I work with families, there's often a point where a sign goes up on the door that says, soft voices, gentle energy, please. And it's just a way to remind people that they're coming into something that's a little bit different than regular life.
Hmm.
And
So the space
most
itself
people,
is sort of becomes like a
that's,
ritual space.
yes, the space itself is a ritual space, and there are people who hold that. I've worked, a lot of people like to read and play music for the person. And um, there's some practices I've done and been taught about bringing the community together. There's one I can think of. The gentleman, I think he had already died, and we were in a hospice house. And if someone has already died, I like for everybody to have something to hold that they can place on the body. And I like to use flowers because I just like to use flowers. And at this hospice, there were no flowers that were alive. And there were two youngsters. Their dad had died. These kids were probably 7 and 10. And I asked them if they would go out with me in the night, just in front of the hospice, and we picked up rocks. And we brought rocks for all the adults who were in the room, and for those kids. And we held the rocks, and I invited the kids to whisper um, any kind of message they wanted to whisper into the rock, that the rock would hold it, and then they could leave the rock there with their dad. So it was a really impromptu, um, middle of the night ritual that ended up being beautiful. I love when there's an opportunity to have kids be involved in that way, because we're talking on their level, and they really know what's going on, and they have an idea about what they need. And when they're the ones leading, there's a softening that happens. And that whole room of adults, they all had their rocks. Everybody talked, blew their message into the rocks and the blessings, and everybody went up one by one and said what they needed to say to this gentleman. And it ended up being a really beautiful kind of experience. That was not from a book. That was not from uh, it, it wasn't it was from a multitude of other experiences, recognizing that there's a way that we can come together in community and say goodbye. And so my I use invitation a lot, is to meet those moments, and we don't have to meet them perfectly, but there are ways that we can gather as community to remember and honor, as somebody is dying or somebody who's died. So that you can take that rock ceremony and use it however you wish to use it. I've had families leave messages in rocks, also in the hospital. When they couldn't be in the hospital room, they had to leave their person overnight, and they were worried about him, and they would blow messages into rock, to the rock, and leave them under the bed in the hospital room. So if you've ever been in a hospital room and seen rocks underneath, that might be why. It makes me laugh, but it's sweet. It's really sweet, and it helps with connection.
Mm. You had mentioned earlier that you have particular interest in the sort of languaging around death, and sort of like what are some of the things that you have found that are more helpful or transformational kind of language that you can use rather than some of the stuff that might actually create more challenge?
Yeah, so when I talk about language of dying, it's the language of the people who are making their way. And there are ways that we as caregivers and people who are stepping into a sacred space with somebody who's dying can enter those spaces, which is with a softening. Um, there's a uh, tool trick. I don't know what you call it. I invite my students to use before they walk into a room where someone is dying, to put their hand on the door and to let go of everything that would keep them from being present with that person. Whatever they're worried about for the day, let all that sink into the door, sink into the ground, and then step into that room, um, empty from the day, empty from worries, empty from fear, and go in as someone who doesn't have the answers. Go in as someone who is there to be part of the experience and see what is needed. And sometimes nothing is needed. Sometimes there are things that are needed, but if we go in with an idea that we're going to take care of this and save the day, that's not necessarily helpful. So it's that coming back to ourselves again and again and again, getting settled, getting present, and then moving from that place. And then on the other side, the language of dying, if we're present and calm in ourselves, we're able to hear better, and we can notice the movements people are making, um, the way the breath is, the conversations they're having, and can get a sense of where those people are in their process and what they might need.
Mm. I want to ask about self-compassion and how you see that factoring in terms of holding space for the dying.
So we we humans are really good at guilt, and um, we feel we people who come to see me, and I certainly have felt this too. We don't feel like we've done enough, or we should have done more, or we should have done it in a different way. We beat ourselves up with the should haves, could haves, would haves. And self compassion is a way to settle those things that are happening in our mind. When we get in those guilt um, spaces, guilt in ourselves, those spaces, it dysregulates us. And when we can get into self compassion, which can be just as simple as putting a hand on a heart and I did the best I could, I'm doing the best I can. Um, our person knows what they know how to die, they know how to do this, and my job is to come alongside them. My job is not to fix them. My job is to come alongside them and be present, be a loving presence, peaceful loving presence, and uh, be open to the mystery, be open to what comes. We 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 spend a lot of time fussing at ourselves, and we don't need to. So
Mm,
that's where self-compassion comes in there.
mm. I also want to ask about what you call reaching behavior and how you understand.
Yeah. Let me show you a couple of examples of those. So I've got two photographs. Um, in the dying process, as people are their body and spirit is separating further and further, there are movements that begin to happen, and sometimes you'll see people um, moving their hands down around their stomach or reaching over to the side, looking up around the ceiling. And then often, if they have the capacity, if they have energy in their body to reach, you'll see them reaching. Some people think they're reaching towards somebody or something. Some people think it is purely physiological. Uh, I really don't care about that. I just know that it is real to the person who's having the experience, and it's really common, and it can be confusing if you've not seen it before. The first time I had the experience of it was with my mother, and I kept reaching up to hold her hand, and that's not what she needed. She was reaching up in my meaning making. She was reaching up towards somebody or something, and I didn't hinder her, but I would have done that differently had I known. So here's a picture. This guy is looking up at the ceiling, and this reaching behavior, it was up and then it was down, and then it was up and it was down. And he is um, away. So his eyes are open. He can hear what's going on around him, but he's not responding. He's in a different place. And here's another picture of him. I put this one in just because his eyes were a little bit different, and you can see he's looking to a different part of the room. And that's what it looks like. They're on their back, reaching up. Um, Again, if you've not seen that before, you think, oh, okay, they're doing something. When I see somebody doing that and that person is on hospice, that tells me that they're pretty far in the trajectory of their experience. They still have energy for this kind of movement. And uh, after that, there's a real sinking in where they don't move so much anymore. This kind of reaching doesn't mean they're going to die in the next few hours, though it could. This is the thing about the mystery of dying. There's no. And she didn't. She died a few hours after that. She sunk in pretty quickly. It's a um, it's quite an experience to
Mm,
be in the liminal space and have the experience of being with people,
Mm,
especially the long road.
mm. I want to also ask, we said we would cover a little bit about meaning making as a way to transform how death is held internally. And I wonder if you can share a little bit about that.
So when I teach people about language of dying, that meaning making part really comes in because, as I said before, it's so often their person is confused, and I got to teach a class some years ago, and I talked about this language of dying and what it potentially could mean. Could it mean something different than confusion? Could it be a marker along the pathway that a social worker or a physician or a counselor could see and recognize and help a family understand in a little bit different way? So if a group of people are with someone who is nearing end of life and they're having difficulty understanding that, meaning making around what's happening in terms of this is a language that I recognize when somebody is closer to dying than farther away from dying. That's something I might say. So there's a meaning making that way. Another meaning making is around this self compassion piece. If I can help people broaden their perspective, their view about the meaning they have on a death that happened in the past, and they can come to a class like this and renegotiate the experience they had before, look at it in a different lens, hold the whole experience in a different way that allows them to go, oh, maybe I did know what I was doing. Maybe we did take as good a care of them as we could have. This is good. This is good to have this information. It happens a lot when people take this class. I think because we do this in our houses and we do this in the hospital rooms, and a few people are involved and we don't talk about it enough. So we don't know what's normal. So as we talk about what happens when somebody's dying, what it looks like, what it smells like, how you move people, how you do all the things, what they look like, it gives an opportunity for people to make meaning of their past experiences in different way, and also to make meaning of what dying could be for them in a different way or a new way. And
Hmm.
that's a really important part of this process too.
Hmm. So many great insights into just all the different aspects. And I know you want to also offer a little bit of an experiential taste of how to work with the dying and process in a deeper way. So do you want to do that now?
Sure, we'll do a quick little 5 or 6 minute. So if you wish, you can close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, and take a breath in, hold that for a count of 4, and breathe out. And just breathe regularly and let the chair support you or the ground support you wherever you are. And we're just going to settle in here. We're going to do a sweet little um, meditation that to take you to the place of release. A place of release is a practice that goes by many different names. It's something that's practiced across cultures, and it's a way to prepare your body, your mind, and spirit for this place you get to where you step off into what's next. So, in your mind's eye, I'm going to invite you to look down and notice that you're on a path, and we're going to walk together on this path. You may hear the crunch of the gravel. It's the perfect temperature today, perfect weather. You have ease in your body. Your knees don't hurt. All those aches and pains that have been ailing you are not present today. It's an easy walk. And up ahead of you, you will see a big fence and a gate. You may notice the blue sky. Notice the ease of being in your body and being present and getting more peaceful and more peaceful. And as you get to the gate, you recognize there's a person there that looks quite familiar to you. Old person. They recognize you, and you recognize them as a guide. This is somebody who knows you well, and they are always at this particular gate. Anytime you come back here, they will be here. There's a warm welcome. They open the gate, and you walk through with them, staying on the path. Just the right temperature, beautiful day, so much ease. As you walk on the path, you notice lights on either side of the path. And as you move past the lights and towards new ones, those lights begin to turn up and get brighter. And as you move further down the path and further down the path, those lights get brighter and brighter. And you keep walking, you're squinting and squinting, and you're just about to the point where you're going to have to close your eyes. And your guide motions for you to stop. And you notice some figures coming from the light up in front of you. There's some animals, looks like some people, definitely people you recognize and love. They're so excited to see you. There may be some angels there, there may be some entities there that are important to you. This is a peaceful, safe, beautiful place for you with only people who are safe and beautiful and helpful to you. And one of those people or entities or pets comes forward. You're so happy to see them, and they're so happy to see you. It's a long embrace. You get to embrace them and hold them. Say whatever you need to say. And just feel the love in this moment. Feel the warmth of the light. Feel the sweetness of these people, the sweetness of these energies, and how profoundly grateful you are to be with all of them. You notice that the lights are starting to dim just a tiny bit. You're holding hands with your person, and you look over, and the guide is motioning that it's time to go. It's not a very long visit this time, is it? It's good to know then that you can come back whenever you want. You squeeze a hand and wave to those who have gathered. They're starting to go back into the light, and you turn with the guide and make your way back up the path. You are filled with this energy. You're filled with this light. And as you walk further and further up the path, the light dims and dims until you are in a soft afternoon sun. You can see the gate ahead. Your guide opens it, and both of you go through. The gate closes. You thank the guide for taking you to the place of release, and they remind you that you can come back anytime you want. You can ask for particular people to come, and when it's your time for your soul and your body to separate, you can come to this place of release and meet the people who will help you cross over into the light. Wave goodbye, gently, gently making your way up the path. You are peaceful. You are filled with love. You hold this experience in your heart. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for that lovely meditation. How do you recommend we continue to integrate and build on that?
So uh, my knowing about these practices, that some people do these practices once a week, some people do them once a month. There's a uh, one of the bonuses is a conversation about these kind of ritual practices that happen um, across the world. So it's a um, great place to do a little digging and studying and see if this is something that you might would like to do more regularly.
Hmm.
It's a kind of a great practice.
Hmm. There's a few other areas that we said we would discuss today. I want to make sure we provide a little time for them. The I wish I had known moments. So I wanted to ask about that and how to navigate that.
I wish I had known that sometimes the last conversation isn't one that I'm going to know is the last conversation.
Hmm.
I wish I would have known to go ahead and say all the things that I wanted to say and not wait, even if I think I should wait. And doing them before, talking about them before the person is dying, um, is useful. We don't know when we don't know when we're going to go. It's yeah, being able to take care of that kind of business is really useful. Um,
Okay. And one other area that we said we'd talk a little bit about is just how to keep the that connection with and the bonds after the death process is complete too.
right. So there's this really beautiful um, experience. It's called continuing bonds. It's research that was done some years ago. Freud he talked about how we needed to cut off somebody dies, we quit talking about them and get on with our life. And he preached that and taught that to his students and his patients until his daughter died. And he figured out that there was another way to do it. And he thought about his daughter all the time and he missed her. And Western psychology thought for a long time, like Freud did, that you needed to be separate. You got to not think about them and you got to move on. But we know now that we can have a relationship with that person even though they've died. We have a relationship with who they are now and who we are now. And talking to them, asking them to join us for experiences. Like I asked a couple of my people to come be with me today. Uh, that doesn't mean you're talking to somebody that's not there. It means that you are connecting and being in relationship with a person who's not in body anymore. And it's a beautiful way to continue connection with somebody. And sometimes those things turn into beautiful dreams that happen over years, or people have other kind of, I will call them non-ordinary experiences because that's what the lingo is. I think they really are ordinary. Having a dream that feels like a visit, or having somebody uh, touch you in your sleep and you realize there's not anybody there. Things like that happen a lot in grief and bereavement. The signs that happen, uh, 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 that'd be a whole big other wonderful class. But
Mhm.
that sometimes gets blown off and we ignore it. And uh, a different way to do it, and a way that is more opening and softer, is to think of those as these continued experiences with these people, and how do we hold those and how do we continue those? So I think they're not non-ordinary. I think they're ordinary, and it's another thing that we just haven't talked about so much in Western culture, and it's a good time to.
Great. Well, Martha Jo, you're a fountain of so much wisdom on this subject, and I want to spend some time talking about how people can go deeper and really explore the map of dying, understand ritual processes, presence, the whole territory. And so we're really excited that you have this brand new upcoming program. It's called The Map of Dying, Ritual Presence and the Art of Loving Someone Through Death. So this you can find it at the URL explorethemapofdying.com, explorethemapofdying.com. This is a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites for this. This is really just a chance to explore your relationship with the dying process, whether you're facilitating that for somebody else or potentially looking at it yourself as well. So,
Yeah.
Martha Joy, I'd love for you to share in your own words what people will come away with, your intentions for how this benefits them, and then we'll go through the modules, give a preview of what you're going to be teaching.
My hope is that people will be more comfortable with the reality of dying. We have an idea about what it is. We read about it in books. Um, and if we're lucky, I say lucky, if we're lucky, we're with a couple people in our lifetime, maybe three, who are dying, and we get to learn from that. And that leaves a lot of space where we don't know things, and we don't know what we don't know. So with this class, I hope to shed some light on what dying looks like, what it can look like, and ways that we can be present and be connected and be helpful to someone who's making their way. So, greater comfort, greater confidence in our ability to be with somebody, to support somebody. Um, Hopefully, inviting people to have some conversations that may feel difficult, and also can be really useful as part of goodbyes. We often put goodbyes under the rug, and we don't want to do that because it'll hurt too much. And goodbyes can be a really beautiful part of our human experience. So we'll talk about that too.
So, Module 1 begins with beginning the walk, orienting to death as a sacred passage.
So I I like to think about dying as a sacred threshold. And this conversation we'll have in this first class is about this threshold. And it's about orienting ourselves to what this landscape of dying looks like. And that's what the map's about. We'll land in the map and invite you to think about some people you've been with and where they were, and we'll start to orient ourselves that way.
Module 2, the body's story, understanding the physical process of dying.
So we'll talk about what a body actually does when it's dying, and uh, look at the physical changes. And hopefully, the intention is that there's less fear around that after there's some gentle conversation about what you may see and hear and feel as you're with someone.
Module 3, the heart's landscape, navigating the emotional terrain of dying.
It's it's hard when somebody we love is leaving us, and lots of emotional currents and lots of layers of all kinds of things. It's love, but sometimes it's complicated. So we're going to talk about fear and reconciliation and unfinished business, and how to manage when the business stays unfinished, and ways that we can transform ourselves around these experiences, um, and maybe transform the conversation and the way that someone you're caring for is dying, is how all that is held.
Module 4, liminal and spiritual experiences at the threshold, understanding sacred moments and responding with presence.
Those ordinary and non-ordinary experiences are part of the dying experience, and rather than dismissing them, we're going to talk about some of those and learn how to witness them with presence, and um, step into the sacred.
Module 5, presence as medicine, being with dying with steadiness and grace.
we so often feel like we need to do something that human doing versus human being, and we're going to spend time in this class talking about ways to be present in our mind, body, and spirit to be supportive to the person who's dying and supportive to ourselves.
Module 6, Goodbyes That Heal, Creating Meaningful Closure and Easing Long-Term Grief.
So I've found that ritual and ceremony before someone dies really can be helpful for later. The families we worked with who were able to do those kinds of things versus the families who weren't had a much different experience. So we're going to talk about rituals and ceremony and forgiveness and gratitude and ways to say farewell to someone that it offers more opportunities for peacefulness for the dying person and for the ones who are left behind or remaining. I guess they're not left behind, the ones who are remaining. Let's say that.
And finally, Module 7, Living What Dying Teaches, Integrating the Map and Mystery to Transform Life in the Present.
So, this last class will be taking all the things we learned and talked about and conversations you've had with yourself and explore how all of these experiences could possibly reshape your own priorities and deepen your appreciation of life and how you want to live it.
Well, what a beautiful program, and really so timely for anybody who is facing the potential of dying process with loved ones. And it's also just good preparation for whenever that does come up in your life. So we've, again, the whole program is laid out in more detail at explorethemapofdying.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Dr. Atkins, you're going to get recordings of every session, both video and audio. You'll have word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. You'll get to ask your questions live. You'll have weekly exercises and practices. It's also a community group to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses, each of which is designed to really enhance your journey. There's a bonus on where are you on the timeline, reflecting on mortality, decline, and the shape of dying. You want to share more about that, Martha Jo?
So, for many people, they've not taken time or known how to dig into questions about their own mortality. So, this is an opportunity to do that very gently and to look back at some experiences you've had in your life and maybe put them together in ways that help you understand how you're living into your life now, and maybe there's some ways that you want to live a little bit differently. This is a great it's a great opener for this class to see where you are and how you experience dying, how you think about it, and how you think about your own life and
Hmm.
mortality.
That's a great extra bonus. And then there's a second bonus, is a PDF prompt guide called Opening the Conversation, Prompts for Talking About Death Before You Have to. I'll share more about that as well.
So I often hear from um, adult children who want to talk to their parents about dying and what their people want, and I hear from parents of adult children who don't know how to talk to their adult children because they're going to die someday and they want their kids to know things, and somebody on either side is not feeling so confident about it. So this is a PDF of some prompts that could be used if you wish to start some conversations to talk about dying, what you want, what you've thought about, how you want to be cared for. If you're dying, do you hire somebody to come care, or are you gonna have your son or daughter do that? There are lots of openings here for really important conversations that we're often afraid to have.
Hmm. It's a great extra bonus too. And then there's one final bonus that folks you will get if you choose to sign up right away. This is our way to encourage you to really take the time and go through the website at explorethemapofdying.com and tune in with what you've heard today. And if this is the right next step for you, then you're going to get a special bonus for signing up today. It's an audio teaching from Martha Jo called Return to the Place of Release. Want to share more about today's special bonus?
Across many cultures, there are contemplative exercises that help people prepare the mind and body for the moment of dying. And there's all kinds of different techniques. There are some of those are outlined in a PDF for this bonus. And then there's the meditation that's about 30 minutes that you can listen to a few times and then have that in you and be able to start using that on your own.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great extra bonus and a great reason to sign up right away. So we're really blessed to have this program. I know it's going to be very healing and such a powerful reorientation for anyone who is faced with this really crucial end of life transition. So again, it's all the details are at explorethemapofdying.com. We've kept the investment very accessible. It's just three payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start April 9th and run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community. There's some beautiful testimonials on the page about Martha Jo and her beautiful teachings and support and care and compassion. So you're in really good hands and get to harvest the benefit of decades of research into this area and really apply that in your own life. So you will be blessed, I'm quite sure, if you choose to move forward. And again, it's all at explorethemapofdying.com, and you'll get that special bonus by midnight tonight, which is the return to the place of release.
That's right.
So, Martha Jo, thank you so much for your wisdom and care in this hour. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the course with you?
I'm just the invitation is there to come and bring your whole self wherever you are and be in community and talk about this topic that is so often pushed away, and we're gonna embrace it and see where it takes us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Many blessings, Martha Jo, and thank you all for
You.
coming and look forward to seeing many of you in the upcoming course.
Thanks, Stephen.